So one question from that is how is there's analytics, but there's also how is AI helping with that? So and then as AI continues to evolve and it seems to almost exponentially accelerate, and also exponentially accelerate to the degree to which it can be integrated with in a way as its interface with reality is the surface area of that is getting higher and higher. With all these with all these sort of graphs going in that direction, how are customer success people, and specifically you, dealing with that? How are customer expectations changing? How are they sort of affecting the way that you're dealing with them? And then a big part of this is how do you find out more deeper and deeper what these different sectors need? As and it is quite tough to do that very quickly. So how are you managing all that uh, in your
So
role?
from the perspective of AI and solutions that are built on what we call the artificial intelligence, it's not new. It's been around for a while. What is becoming more relevant is the use case capability for what that solution space was doing. So the hype cycle that we are in right now is the generative AI hype cycle, right? And it's not hype cycle; it is solutions capability on it, large language models, right? So when you think of the use case, it, it is a cycle, but it's not new. These large language models have been around for a while in different capabilities. So when you're thinking of how AI is influencing these decision making, it's augmenting humanity. The idea of a person doing more of what they need to do with decision points and solutions that have augmented them to be faster at that decision making point. So those AI models are nothing but trained models of human activities and construct. And that's the way you want to start looking at it. So anything that in any discipline, any industry doesn't have any tie-in of any kind. If you are a medical professional, a doctor, and you want to make some caregiving decisions, you can do it one of two ways. You can go to school for decades and become a professional expert because you have acquired the knowledge and put it in your brain. So you can look at these different capabilities and say, oh, this is what's wrong with you. This is the ailment. Here's a pharmaceutical medicine that will fix it. Or you can leverage the data points that are actually digitally available. All those academic textbooks of medical journals are available and it's in some fashion. If they're not, they're getting digitized very fast right now. And then you have a large language model that is trained against that set of data. So now you can use the same capability of decision making by prompting an encyclopedia of data that has been categorized using efficient data storage systems and databases and connective data points and indexes that AI is saying, hey, you're asking the same thing a human would be asked if you were trying to do medical science or some kind of a healthcare caregiving. I'm just doing it faster. And the way I'm doing it faster is using a large language model that's trained to understand your prompt, that's trained on a lot of GPU chipsets that are going to return the value of what you're asking in a very efficient, fast, quick manner. And so the augmentation there is of a human purpose and discipline. So you're not magically creating jobs and roles of people that did not exist. Like if you are using AI to replace decision making and solutions, you're essentially replacing a human that previously was training that model. So that you can't just artificially create a genre or existence because it has to be trained. Now, yeah, so there's a lot of people that are worried that it's going to take their job away, like coders and software developers are very concerned that using ChatGPT type capability can augment software development. Absolutely. So the reason we had so many software developers because you needed that human brain to create software in large amounts because you couldn't do that. Now, yes, ChatGPT now may be able to train, give you the code base, be able to translate code and do it faster. What did you do? You just replaced humans with the technology and skills required to do that because you have a baseline trained index or capability that's going into the decision-making process. So anything AI is not new. AI is just a faster capability to make those decisions on that data. If you have bad data, you'll make bad decisions. So guess what you have to do in the world of AI? If you want to make good decisions, make sure your data points are there in a way those language model training capabilities done or capability to make those things get done, right? A software developer, let's say, wants to move from C sharp to Java coding, right? And they say, oh, I'm going to use ChatGPT to train myself to go do that. Very good. Awesome. But if you did not have code samples of C sharp or Java to be trained against, that software developer is never going to learn the skill of how to convert code. So that codex or that engine that's behind these a lot of popular software development platforms that says that you can translate code, you can ask ChatGPT like questions to it. Well, it's pointless if you didn't have the baseline data point to train it against it. So you still have to collect the data, and that data acquisition will not happen automatically. It can be digitized. So think of sensor data, IoT devices, collecting all the data points and storing it in a data system. It's likely going to be in the cloud because that's where the volume and scale capability is available, but you still have to train against it. And so these language models have to be trained over and over again. That's why Chat 3.5 and ChatGPT 4 and ChatGPT 5, they're using, tokens and multiple billions of parameters capability, because you are getting more data and you have to train it faster and quicker. And the way you train faster and quicker is having silicon-based GPU chips available in large quantities so you can run these multiprocessing capabilities to train that. So ultimately, it is data-driven, and the domain that it comes for is going to be based on the domain that the data has translated to. Think of law, right? You see those pictures of lawyers and their law firm portraits sitting in front of a bank of books that look like encyclopedias on the shelf behind them. Well, those are cases that have been documented and printed and published. And so when they have a case law conversation, they're looking through all the historical information. There's a librarian in a law firm that knows all the cases and all the different states and jurisdictions those have been done. Well, if you digitize all that, that same lawyer can create a brief by asking the right question to the repository of data and get it done. But what if those case law was not digitized? Well, then you still have to hit the books. You still have to flip the page and look through it word by word. And so if you think of acquisition of a data point, you have to have enough data in the system, in the world, in the internet to be able to confidently make the right decisions, or you will continue to have bad decision makings no matter how amazing that AI solution is.
So when we talk about this, you made a point to talk about the different ways AI can augment people's experiences, but then the integration part is where there's a lot of complexity, because they're, first of all, pre-existing systems with pre-existing understanding of what kind of interface that they're going to have to be able to be functional. And with AI, the interface is I wouldn't say fundamentally different, but it is, the resolution is not as high. Because it doesn't have to be, and that's an advantage of AI, at least for now, especially specifically with language models. The resolution is human language. There's also accuracy and security, and because the resolution is not as high, and because it's almost a stats model, you're not exactly sure what will come out, for better or for worse. Still an advantage, but you're not exactly sure, which brings in security concerns. So there's those two parts. Those parts aren't new, but that they are unique. And then obviously once you scale all this, it becomes a lot more complicated. Now, is it still extremely valuable to bring in? Absolutely. It's almost inevitable that you must. So, whether you have to sell it or not is one thing, but being able to actually have a successful integration with an existing organization, it's a complex task. So how do you go about getting that even started? Justifying the cost is definitely one thing, and for some people it may or may not be as valuable. But how do you even approach that? Like, how do you even say, okay, look, and this is even before you start talking about, hey, if you don't have a whole data infrastructure that can feed this model information that you're comfortable is objectively valuable, that this is after you've made the assumption that this is the actual this information is the information you actually need relative to your market, and can also, and is wide enough that and when your market shifts, you're still getting that information, right? As you've talked about, rotations in markets are happening at a faster and faster rate. So when we think about this architecture that you've sort of drawn out over the last few minutes, how are you able to ensure and make a customer feel like they will have some success, like with all of this?
Yeah. So it's a great question. AI is not going to help you do anything unless you do not understand what is the choke point. I will use enterprise commercial software as an example. But let's say you have a CRM system. I don't even have to talk about a brand. It can be any brand. A CRM system. The purpose of CRM is customer data for whatever it is, either you resell, retail, whatever, energy distribution. You have a database of customer information, and you are a salesperson. Today, what you have to do is open up your CRM, look at the customer profile, their address, their location, their buying habits. All of those data points are in their system. And what that person is doing is using their sales prowess or sales experience of the decades of experience that they have amassed to say, hey, maybe this person will like to buy this, or maybe this person is ripe for maybe a car dealership is a great example. If you have a good CRM in a car dealership, you may know exactly when this person may want to buy another car, or what kind of model they want, and what did they buy previously, and what did they have good success with, and how did they achieve success with that card they picked up. So you have this database environment where these informations, the CRM is stored and capability addressed. Now let's put AI on top of that. Now you say, okay, what would AI bring to me in this space? Well, what AI will do for you is make that decision make faster, right? You're using machine learning and AI models to give you those prompts. So you can say, hey, look at my CRM and tell me who's ready to buy a car. You're using English language to prompt your CRM to give you an answer. Well, you can use indexes, you can use search parameters, you can write SQL queries to do exactly just that same thing. Well, if you were to do it today in the traditional model, you need somebody that knows SQL for maybe the database environment you're using. So maybe that's a technologist. So I need a query to do table joins and this and this and this, because the data point I want is how many people are going to buy a car and when they're ready to buy the car. So you have a lot of tasks and capabilities to get there. But the purpose of that intent and the exercise is that I want to find out who's going to buy more cars and when they're going to buy it. And I have a lot of decision making points. Oh, by the way, I need it now. I need it fast and really quick. That's where an AI comes into place, because you're not able to bolt on AI solutions. So before you bolt on AI solutions, that CRM platform might be ready for AI plugin. So if CRM platform maker did not create an AI plugin capable solution, then you are going to be at a disadvantage. Your AI solution will need intermediary place to go before you make the decision. So you'll take all the data out of the CRM, put it in a data lake of some sort, that bolt on AI on top of that to build the intelligence for you to have that prompt-like conversation to say who's going to buy a car, when, and how. So if you're a software developer and you're a software manufacturer, you're making software and platforms, you need to have that AI plugin built-in and capable design ready now, or work towards creating a way to do that tomorrow. Microsoft, I use example of that. We use Bing as our search engine for internet. That now has ChatGPT capability built on top of it. Well, what is that? It's the software developers that writes the search engine for Bing and have developed over years and decades realize that for them to implement the ChatGPT AI bolt-on on top of that would need X number of parameters and X number of development. So they start working on it. And the reason they got faster and quicker at it is because over the decade of software development, they went into an agile mindset. They went into this Scrum mindset where they make small changes faster and quicker. So the software engineering group had to, over years, and pivot away from waterfall approaches into an agile approach to develop software. So when AI became a fad and it became a real necessity, the software developers sat in a room during a decision-making conversation and say, hey, we need to bolt on top of this. What are the different APIs we need to think about? How do we secure it and govern it? How do we make sure it's the right amount of data? How we create the packages of the intelligence to go crunch it against the CPU? They created that framework very relatively quick and then implemented it because they're software developers and they're using agile framework. But you still needed to bolt on AI on top of that to make that capability. So CRM or internet search engines, or let's say a healthcare provider trying to figure out healthcare patient data, will need that interface built in some fashion. So if you're commercializing AI for the purpose of it, the first thing you need to do is, how do I bring AI to the decision making that I'm making today? So is it human based? Is it machine based? Is it data point based? All of those things still requires you to design the product and solution so that you can bolt on AI on top of that. So the journey of, am I going to make the right investment here, is based on, do you need to make decisions fast and quick? Weather models is a great example. Weather data is where AI really got its refinement and age, like Weather Channel or any of those people that are making weather decisions, because weather is a volatile creature. If you don't make the right prediction, you could have damages and outcomes to crops and, health and life. People might die if you couldn't predict a tornado or a hurricane coming down someplace, right? So if you think of that, I need to make the decision model very fast and very quick. So how am I going to get that? Well, all the data captured by satellites and weather stations across the world and the globe and zip codes have to be aggregated in a place where these models can be crunched and the models have to change. If you ever look at the Weather Channel or any weather related news, you'll notice when they're predicting a hurricane path, they have different models. They have the European model, they have the American model, they have the German model, because all these different models are using data points to say, hey, my model says this weather path of that hurricane is going to be. That's why they show the squiggly lines on those maps, because they can't really predict where it's going to happen, because the data has to change fast and quick to show you what that journey looks like for that hurricane during that period of a weather event. So when you think of that, you're creating an interface for those weather meteorologist people to be able to take the data, put it in, and get the response fast and quick. Same thing with healthcare, same thing with inventory management, same thing with energy and oil and gas. You have to have a decision-making point that is accelerated because of the data you already have and data you're acquiring. And if you don't bring them together in your software engineering platform, you won't succeed. Let me use an example of what happens in digital photography. The context of digital photography is no different than traditional photography. You still have to have a camera with a lens that takes a picture that's going to be converted into pixels or a chemical-based photographic grain, and then you look at the image. But what has happened over time is digital cameras became very popular. They became better. Digital software became popular and became better. So the traditional camera-based and chemical-based photography has fallen on the wayside. But guess what? The photographer is still applicable because you still need to know what you're looking at. You have to still frame the picture. You still need to know colors. You still need to know how to correct imperfections in pictures or remove digitally, but you're just using digital technology to do that. If the color red doesn't look color red, that picture is no good because, your perception is still a human-based element. What you've just made the digital photographer become is faster, quicker at digitizing those images and editing those images faster and quicker. And that's what AI is doing. So AI is now saying, hey, this color of the sky doesn't look right. Maybe it should be a little bit more blue or a little bit less gray. That is trained on the fact that a photographer, a human, actually says, this is what a blue sky looks like, this is what a gray sky looks like, this is what a red sky looks like, and they trained it. So now that AI intelligence behind Adobe or whatever that digitized experience is using that model to say that. So if you can create the model, which is really coming from humans, that digital photographic experience will not look right. And that's why you have these this context of hallucinations. When an AI model doesn't know what they're doing, they just create makeup stuff, right? And sometimes they're cool, sometimes they're just off the wall. So that decision making is exactly how you would want to get there. And so if you're writing software, developing code, developing something that requires you to inject AI or machine learning into it, make sure that you write software and code with the capability of that. And by the way, in the world of economics and commercialization, you have to make sure that data is private, so privacy matters. It's secure, so security matters. So you have to now inject the same principles that you would have done in traditional software development to now become more relevant in that space and creating those points of design to be applicable faster. So if you are a software engineer working for a software company that is making money based on their software, you want AI, ML, machine learning, governance, security, all to be a part of your big picture, because if you're not ready for it, you may miss out on the ability to move, pivot fast, quick, and then the competitive advantage is lost.
If the outcome is reached, but the customer is not happy with its value proposition, it could be because it simply didn't give the result that the customer expected, or the customer's customers didn't find it as useful as your original customer would have hoped. So I guess my real question is, like, where have you seen that the most mismatched, or what kind of either person or organization?
It happens all the time. So what happens is that's the product feedback loop, right? You wanted an outcome. We agreed on the outcome. I provided you the outcome, but you as a customer's customer did not get that. So you'll come back to me. It's like, oh, by the way, you know what? If it could do this, that would be more valuable. So now I'm going to take that to my product engineers and develop a product feature for it, right? If that's important. Or I can just say, well, too bad, don't buy it again. Like, well, it's the same thing happens when you go to a restaurant. If you see a picture of a nice meal and you order it and it doesn't satisfy you in the same way, you're not going to buy it. Yeah, yeah, you're not going to buy it again, right? You're not going to buy it again. But guess what? It may not be the problem with the restaurant. It might be the problem with the menu item, right? Like there's restaurants that you always go, like you go to, Cheesecake Factory, Olive Garden, whatever. You go to those places all the time, but not all the dishes on the menu are good, right? So you might just say like, hey, you know what? If you go to Cheesecake Factory, don't buy this because that sucks. But still go to Cheesecake Factory because they have 10 other things that you like. So the same thing applies to products, right? You will have a customer that says, I thought it was going to achieve this, but it didn't. So you have 2 points to do. You can take that decision point back to your product engineers. Maybe it's a product deficiency. It's like, oh, it'd been nice had it this feature. So let me go talk to developers and product engineers to see if they can create the additional feature. Because if I did that, that customer now would be satisfied because it achieved the success they wanted, even though they knew it wasn't going to do that. They just, oh, look, I didn't get the reward I wanted, but if you had this part, it would have been nicer. And so that decision-making of buying again will come back from that. Now, it could also be that you don't want this. This is not what you want. You just decided and you abandon the product. And what will happen is if it's a competitive landscape, the person that has that feature and product capability will now win the day.
So, but okay. So one of the things I'm thinking is, if it happens a lot, then a lot of customer success is how to pivot when it does happen. Is that fair to say?
It is happening a lot. It happens all the time. Why do you think there are so many solutions and products out there? Because the people that are not pivoting, they're not happening, are losing out. Think of Microsoft itself. There's a time when Microsoft products are the best, and then there are times when they're like, oh, this is the worst of the product, but then you go back up to it again. It's a cyclical journey. Large companies always have cyclical journeys. There's time when IBM was on top, IBM is not. NVIDIA is on top, NVIDIA is not. AMD is on top, AMD is not. All these things have a cycle, and it's customer success oriented. Ultimately, at that last bit, that's why every company is investing in customer success roles, because if you don't get that product feedback loop established faster, you may lose that journey at that point.
Right. So how do you deal with that? Because it seems like customer success is pivotal in an organization's understanding of where it needs to go in the future. Hence the sort of focus on agile systems when it comes to sort of building things and getting an understanding of that. But so how does that how do you see that? Like how do you see that reality, and how do you preserve that relationship? Because there's different points, right? You can build a whole new product, or you can talk to the customer and say, here's where you might need to have put it, right? With the outcome still being reached. But this thing, at the end of the day, these are tools, right? It is how you use them. And now that you have now that you are in a way at step one of your understanding of the tool, you have reached an outcome, and now you have the information necessary to make the decision for step two, right? Our tool can still do that. The tool is the tool. What kind of conversations are you having at that point?
It depends on the discipline and the industry. Not every conversation has to happen. And what I mean by that is your outcome is based on the outcome at that point. Like you don't wake up, software companies don't create answers for all the software a customer needs. That's why we have variety in the mix, right? There's ERP software, there's CRM software, there's productivity software. There's not a one software that does it all. Now, there are companies that are achieving or trying to achieve that, but they're still not there yet. Microsoft being one of those companies, right? We want to do it all. But we won't be able to do it all. We can't do it all because we have to create this product and also understand the reward of the product in the journey of that conversation. We won't have it all, right? We don't need it because we won't make money on it all. And so when you have a customer in that same boat, that product feedback loop is important so that you can create the next version and iteration of it. And if the customer and you have a good relationship and they believe that you can achieve that, that's where the buying relation really stays. Like if I say, look, Chris, I don't think this is going to do what you want, but give me 6 months, I'll create a product feedback loop and our product engineers will drop a feature in 6 months. And if you believe that I can do that because I have a track record of doing that, you will stay and you'll persevere and you'll say, you know what, I'm not going to change a decision just because one feature is missing. I'll wait till that product comes back. That's why you have product roadmaps. Almost all companies have product roadmaps. That's where you talk about what's going to come in 6 months, a year, a journey, because you are buying that stability. It's like, yes, this company can pull this off, even if the product doesn't exist. I'm going to go to them. I'll tell them the feedback. We're going to do user testing. We're going to beta release. We're going to do all that. And then we're going to provide the feedback. They'll go correct those things. And then we'll have the version 2 of it or the pre-release version that will fix that. That's the relationship of a customer success manager, understanding that, getting that feedback to the right place, and also being honest about it. I might take it back to product engineering be like, nope, we're never going to do that. It's not going to happen, not our core focus. Got to go tell the customer. So I'll go back to the customer and say, hey, we can do that, but I have a way to integrate a third-party product to do that. That's why we have bolt-on. That's why we have third-party products ecosystem across the world. Like the people are saying, we don't have that, but if you added this, and I'm going to have an API that works together, I'm going to have a support structure that works together. I'm going to have a way to make sure that the Lego pieces work and connect together without having a detrimental impact. If we do that conversation, that's what customer success is. Customer success, making sure your outcome is aligned, what the gaps are, finding a solution for that. If there's a gap that is not addressable, being clear about it so the customer knows that they'll not get that outcome they want at the last journey point of it. You're not having a fabrication. Now, the misses of customer success is usually when there's a hype cycle or a marketing cycle that actually makes that messaging very challenging. Like, oh, marketing says we can do that. And then customer success manager is sitting there. It's like, no, it doesn't. So who are you going to go blame? Are you going to go blame marketing or product for committing, or the salesperson for saying something that's not going to be done? Well, if you have a good relationship, you can go to the customer and say, hey, by the way, you bought this, but let me tell you, you can only get A and B. You won't get C. If the customer flips out, that's a different problem. But the customer says, yeah, I kind of figured A and B and C won't be there. You have it documented. You go and focus on the outcome. You achieve A and B, and then you say C is a gap. But guess what? I'm going to take the C, go back to product engineering, and have them start working on it. So now we can also do C sooner than later.
Got it. Ayman, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah. This has been great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, take a look at the description. You'll see segments. You'll see the full podcast. Go take a look. Please go listen. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. We'll see you later.